Hello there, I'm not a real cow, unlike your This is the Oppo Find X8 Pro, and as of the release of this video, still occupies my pocket. This is my full review after more than a year with this device. But hold up, before we dig into it, just a little context on Oppo and its availability, for those that aren't aware. There is some complicated history behind a major Chinese conglomerate known as BBK Electronics. Without falling into that rabbit hole, Oppo, OnePlus, and Vivo are all a part of the greater BBK Electronics group. Well, technically OnePlus is kind of a subsidiary of Oppo, but that's yet another rabbit hole we shan't get into now. This encourages them to share resources and technology while operating as independent brands. This is why you see so many parallels between their devices, including that they share different flavors of the same Android skin. Availability on these devices globally is shaky ground. The X8 series, thankfully, did make its way to Europe, like its older X5 predecessor, but unfortunately not to South Africa. Despite that, we are exposed to a lot of Vivo and Oppo's lower to mid-range devices, with no sight of any of the high-end flagships. This has led to the high-end market in South Africa being largely dominated by Apple and Samsung, giving the public warped perceptions as to the global market as a whole. So, in early 2025, I managed to get my hands on this imported global variant of the X8 Pro that I've put through the ringer since obtaining. Spoiler alert, competition is strong, and the smartphone is still insane. The body is composed of an aluminium frame sandwiched between Gorilla Glass 7i. It's dust tight and water resistant at an IP69 rating, and as you can see, it's held up pretty well despite being caseless for most of its journey. The display is this gorgeous 6.78-inch 120Hz LTPO AMOLED with a resolution of 1264 by 2780 and a typical brightness of 1600 nits that boosts up to 4500. The auto brightness boost holds up well in almost any viewing conditions, and for those sensitive to PWM flicker, this panel has 2160Hz PWM backlight control. The device comes with a screen protector from factory that, as you can see, has received a little bit of damage from my incessant cleaning and appeals, effectively serving its purpose. Logic runs on an incredibly snappy 3nm MediaTek Dimensity 9400, MediaTek's rival to Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite, and my model has 16 gigs of RAM with 512 gigabytes of storage. Unfortunately, like most devices these days, it doesn't come with expandable storage. It does come with dual SIM, either dual nano SIM or a single nano SIM and an eSIM. For the camera tech, we're faced to a 32 megapixel f2.4 at 21mm. On the back, it's treated nicely with a quad array of 50 megapixel sensors. The primary is Sony's LYT808, followed with an ultra-wide using Samsung's ISOCELL JN5. For my most used camera, we have one of the two periscope telephoto lenses, this one using a Sony IMX882 sensor. And finally, we have a 135mm telephoto using Sony's IMX858. This is all using Hasselblad's color science and tied to a dedicated capacitive camera button on the side of the device. Similar to the iPhone 16s, more on that later. Juicing all these components is a healthy 5910 mAh silicon carbide cell. That's basically 1000 mAh more than the S25 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro Max. It also supports 80-watt wired fast charging with 50-watt wireless charging and 10-watt reverse wireless charging for charging your dead friend's iPhone. What the f***? And is capable of 10-watt reverse wireless charging for juicing up your friend's dead iPhone. Yeah, that is definitely a dog. There's three colors, the space black version, pearl white, and blue. I do really like the sophisticated look of the silver camera module on the other variants, but this black one is very sleek and understated. Sticking to the camera module, the ridge has served as a very comfortable home for my index finger, especially because of this knurled ring that surrounds it. It almost feels like it should rotate, but it doesn't. Despite this device being on the chungus side of display sizes, it has been an absolute pleasure in the hand and pocket due to its slim 8.2mm width and only weighing a mere 215 grams. For comparison, even after the iPhone 17 Pro Max's switch to a lightweight aluminium, it has a mean thickness of 8.8mm and weighs 233 grams. This black rear glass piece does an absolutely fantastic job of repelling any finger greases that you smother onto it, making that clean and sleek look incredibly easy to maintain. The display is very subtly curved, just enough for it to be comfortable to grip and use, but not enough for it to cause any sort of distortion. Though depending on how you grip the device, the rejection will often prevent input. With the case on, this never happened to me, but it was a tad frustrating having to adjust my grip when not conscious of it. There is also this 3-step alert slider on the top left of the device, which I use a lot. Although I tend to prefer to leave it on vibrate most often, which sits in the middle and often requires me to two-hand the device in order to nudge it in place. One of my favorite common features on Chinese devices is the IR blaster that sits on the top of this device. This means that you can use it to control typical devices such as TVs and air cons. I use this a ton for convenience, but also to bug people. For audio, the earpiece and bottom-facing loudspeaker are more than adequate for volume and maintain clarity when at its peak, performing competently with good mid and high-end separation, but falling a bit short on the low end even compared to an older iPhone 13 Pro. This is likely a physical compromise from its slim chassis, still a solid-sounding smartphone. Am I the only one? Why are we still here? Just to suffer. Oppo promises half a decade of OS upgrades from Android 15 with the Find X8 Pro. This is pretty typical for a flagship. In the last year of this device, we've already seen the first upgrade from Android 15 to Android 16. I could make an entire video dedicated to ColorOS, so for now I'm just going to shoot through a couple of my favorite features. I'm gonna start with the boot up animation for the Find series. I need to change my pants. The bloat is extremely minimal, it's very lightweight and runs incredibly smooth, aided by some slick, well-made animations, including this pretty cool swipe animation option for gesture mode that you have to enable manually for now since it's in beta. It allows you to peek at the previous page you're going back to as you swipe in. Without it, it looks like this. Usually, after a week of owning a device, I drop on Nova Launcher to minimize animations and get some customization. But out the box, ColorOS has offered me everything I needed. Next, if you're a Mac user, you're probably aware of a third-party app called Floating Shelf. This feature reminds me just of that. It's called File Dock. It allows you to have universal access to a location that you can store files in. For example, a screenshot. You can drag it into the File Dock, go to another app, and drag it out. Beautiful. Next is Live Alerts, Oppo's version of Apple's Dynamic Island. Even if you type dynamic into the settings search, it will show up. I adore this feature. It offers a quick glance at information to any of these features. I mostly use it for music and call control. In addition to the home screen is folder customization. You can enlarge and edit the organizational structure of your folders, depending on your preferences. You can even manipulate the folder into being vertical or horizontal, using this little grab handle at the bottom right edge. The larger icons take you straight into the app, and the smaller ones open the folder. You can even manipulate the size of individual apps to some extent, and for supported apps, you can even have quick access to specific features of the app itself, which is really cool. Before I get onto the last feature, I'm going to quickly list some others that are incredible in their own right, but deserve a dedicated ColorOS video, such as the immense amount of AI stuff, as well as a very powerful built-in video editor and highly customizable lock screen. Okay, for my last favorite feature, we have Oppo's Game Assistant, which pops up whenever you launch a game. There's a toggle bar that you can pull that provides you with two main tabs, Performance and Tools. Performance shows some telemetry, gives you access to different profiles like Pro Gamer, and lets you control touch sensitivity, display refresh rate, and focus mode, which allows you to enable Do Not Disturb and change the way inbound notifications are displayed. I personally love the bullet notifications. The Tools tab grants you further telemetry and controls for music and even more device controls. Genuinely useful stuff. You can even add quick toggles for other apps if you want to.
I'm in my mum's car. Broom, broom. Get out of my car!
I'm not going to talk about benchmarks, but feel free to take in the results on screen. Performance on this chip has been excellent. Developers have been optimizing for MediaTek Dimensity's platform, so there's no need to worry about that. This chip has really been able to flex its muscle against its Qualcomm counterpart. It's overkill for everyday tasks and has never had so much as a hitch in my last year of using it. ColorOS has brilliant RAM management. Not that it's even that necessary with 16 gigs of the stuff, but you shouldn't have to worry if you're one of those freaks that never closes anything.
I'll see you.
For gaming, we have the Immortalis G925 GPU. It actually outperforms the Snapdragon 8 Elite's Adreno A30 GPU, and paired with the Vapor Chamber in the X8 Pro, I've yet to see a thermal throttle, even after playing over an hour of Wuthering Waves at max settings. It comfortably pings the 60 FPS cap without your hands melting into the device. That's not to say that it doesn't get toasty to touch, especially without a case, but cases trap in heat, so it's better anyway. If you're wondering why there's no B-roll for Woowa, it's because I prefer keyboard and mouse as an input for games like that, and honestly I'm just too lazy to install it for B-roll, but trust me, this chip will handle Arknight's Enfield with no problems at all. The B-roll you're seeing here is of games that I've actually been playing most recently on this device that I don't play on PC, the most demanding being mainly Punishing Grey Raven, Kuro's older game, AFK Journey, and Chaos Zero Nightmare, which runs like Pong for this chip and drains very little battery. I haven't tested it personally yet, but I'm more than certain that this chip can handle a bit of PC emulation. Hint hint wink wink if you want to see that video in the future. Despite surprisingly leaning towards the smaller end of battery capacity coming out of smartphones in China, especially in late 2025 going into 2026, with staggering 7000 mAh plus behemoths, it's pulled together the overall experience of using the Find X8 Pro really well. It's almost completely alleviated me from the dreaded battery anxiety that brings us all to shudder. It's a guaranteed one-day device, 2 days with typical use, even running a bit of gaming with the daily Chaos Zero Nightmare. I'm usually a bit stressed to use my phone to shoot all day, but with battery efficiency like this, it's not even a thought that comes to mind anymore. While we're on that topic, okay, let's get to that little camera button. It depresses ever so slightly, but has a really nice haptic feedback. I actually forgot to mention that this device has a really crisp vibration motor, which helps a lot with making that button feel like a real button. A double tap of it launches the camera app. A single tap takes a photo. If you hold the shutter down, it shoots in burst. Swipe left and right to zoom in and out, and the UI element shows you which lens you're switching to. It's quite a bit more sensitive than the iPhone's version, making it smoother and easier to use. Mostly as a shutter though, since the actuation force required to depress it isn't a lot, but just about enough to make you shift your angle a tad if you have a loose grip. Not at all once you get used to it though. I genuinely do like it, but it doesn't quite hit the mark like Sony's version, which acts as a two-stage shutter and is in a much better position. Getting to those photos, post-process is handled by Oppo's Hypertone image engine, which leans towards a more natural tone, unlike the hyper-saturated and over-brightened look that most other flagships go for. HDR looks pretty true to life, with black snut being overly deepened and the lights keeping plenty of detail, maintaining pretty realistic color overall. Switching between the lenses, there isn't much of a noticeable shift in tone, despite every sensor being totally different. The telephoto lenses look crisp at their prime state, and the AI sharpening does a solid job at restoring most of that detail in good lighting, from 10x to about 20x, where it just starts to kind of fall off. I am pretty against the look of digital zoom on any device, so I try to keep most of my pictures within the prime of each lens, or use minimal zoom at most for framing. There is also the Hasselblad portrait mode that does a great job with cutting around subjects and blurring the background. I don't use this nearly as much as I would like to, but I should probably start to use it more often. It also works on the selfie camera. Not quite to the same degree, but you can judge for yourself. On to video. In video, it's pretty solid from 1 to 2 to 3x. The moment you switch into the 6x, it's like, it starts to fall apart a little bit. The 3x is so good, man. So, it's the ultra wide. Pretty good, pretty good. Like it, the ultra wide doesn't actually work at 1080p, only at 4K. You got the 1x, 2x, 3x, 6x. Ooh, birds. Check these guys out. So this is the primary lens. I'm gonna switch to the 3x telephoto. Ooh. Burpees. Oppo, please make your flagships more accessible. I used to be a massive LG and HTC enjoyer when the industry was greener, with two of my favorite devices of all time being the HTC One M7 and the LG V20. That kind of innovation seems to have rammed into a brick wall over the last couple of years. I also really loved Sony, but Sony is still around. They're just ridiculously expensive right now for some reason. Companies seem to somehow think that they have solved the slab phone and decided to move over into other things. Guys, I have news for you. You ain't solved. Most innovation these days is coming out of Shenzhen, China. All of the coolest smartphones right now are basically impossible to get your hands on, which really sucks. The X8 Pro has been one of the best experiences I've had with a smartphone since my Samsung Galaxy S9. Almost as good as my LG V20, which is really saying something. Not quite as good, but almost there. My greatest gripe with this device being its curved screen. It feels great in the hand, but damn, that input rejection is really annoying. To be fair, the fix is pretty simple. All you need to do is slap a case on it, but I like to run my phones caseless because I'm weird. The Oppo Find X9 Pro from late last year does resolve this issue, coming with a flat display, and I would love to get my hands on one of those. But if you've been thinking about getting one, honestly, just go ahead and get it. It's amazing. If you already have your hooves on one, I'd love to hear about your experience with it. Well, that's been me for now, and I apologize for calling your mother up.